Back here at the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. Joining me now is longtime editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine and now author. He's got a brand new book that's coming out, I believe, in the next month or so. Nigel Collins. Nigel, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'll hold the book up so people can see it.
Hooking off the jabs. Real nice cover. I like the cover. Who we got on the cover, by the way?
Norris Curry.
Oh, wow.
This is taken from a number of different publications from 1980 until this year. So I pulled the hardest part of this was deciding what stories to use when you've written thousands. So we start out with Muhammad Ali and we end with Mike Tyson. But in between,
not a bad book,
there's a lot of other stuff. I'll just read you some of the chapters. Modern Superstars has a section with Floyd Mayweather, Gaddy and Ward, De La Hoya, Hopkins, Barrera, Roy Jones. And then we have a section called A Walk on the Dark Side. And there's stories in here about the Philadelphia Death Squad. I don't know if you remember that.
No.
And there's a story about Sonny Banks, who died in the ring in Philadelphia. There's some good stuff too. But I got big biographies on the guys like Dick Tiger. You name it, it's in there. So there's a little something for everybody. It's $18.99, so that's not too outrageous.
Well, if you can't come by here, which I see you're doing a good job selling stuff today, where can you find it?
Well, I'm doing a series of book signings until it's released on Amazon November 15th.
Wow, okay.
You can do pre-order. I don't even know what pre-order is. How can you pre-order? But you can do that now, and then you'll get it right away. But I'm going to have one in Philly at a sports bar, Jimmy's Sports Bar.
Okay.
And I'm going to do as many as I can. That's how you sell books.
You mentioned 1980 you started. 42 years. That's almost like 6 different eras in boxing.
Well, the thing is, that's where the material's from. My first fight I covered for the ring was 1972.
Oh, wow. So 50 years in boxing.
So, yeah, I've been in 50 years. I don't have any of that material anymore, But this material, I'm a better writer now. So it's not that great of a loss because I could do 3 of these.
Yeah.
So I tried to mix it up instead of having all about one thing. And there's a little bit of humor in it. Like I did a section called the bad guys, the guys you love to hate.
Uh-huh.
And that was funny. I made it funny. Another one that's funny that doesn't sound funny, but it is because I wrote it funny, about boxing riots. Why boxing fans riot? And that sounds like a serious subject, but I've always loved those things. I don't run away. I like hide. I don't know what it is. It's sort of crazy. So that's written in a funny way.
I guess the most famous recent riot was the Rick Bowe one with Goliath. Were you there at Madison Square Garden that night?
No.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, that's funny though. Our photographer was a staff photographer. He ran away. We both had to buy pictures from somebody else.
I guess it could go either way. Either you stay there and capture, or you run the heck away.
The thing is, they always say the safest place is underneath the ring. How many people can you get under there?
Yeah, I hear you. 18,000 people there.
Yeah, it's boxing is about fighting. It's not like going to a baseball game or even a football game or going to a concert or whatever. It's all about fighting. And these people have had a few drinks. Maybe they bet on the wrong guy. I remember the first fight I was at was at the Philadelphia Arena. And an out-of-towner got screwed with a fight with Augie Panatellis. And for some reason, the people in the balcony really hated that. and they started throwing bottles. And if you remember, the arena floor was concrete. So when they hit, they went off like hand grenades. And everybody was running away, but I just crouched down behind my seat. And this is a funny, there was only two people left at ringside, me and Gene Courtney, who was the boxing writer for the Inquirer. He had early deadline. He's sitting there typing, he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. His wife is holding a folding chair over his head so he wouldn't get hit. So I'm fascinated by that stuff. So that I wrote that in a funny way to sort of take the edge off, because there's a lot of edge in other stories.
Let me guess, and only a few people would know this kind of inside joke. I would imagine our great late friend and your longtime running buddy, Jack O'Reilly, was probably fighting people in the crowd that night.
I haven't never seen Jack fighting, but I miss Jack.
I miss him terribly.
I mean, this is funny, unusual, shall we say. Years ago, he noticed over my house that I didn't have a proper big knife for cutting bread and stuff. Right? He just gave me one for Christmas. I use it every day. Every time I pick it up, I think of Jack.
Yeah. You know what? There's some symmetry there. You see a knife, you think of Jack.
Well, he gave it to me, but I saw him. We went over to see him for the last time, 2 days before he died, and he was still the same.
Absolutely.
Jack. He was still like the tough guy. He was acting like it was nothing.
I went over there with my now wife a week before he passed away, and I told my wife, I'm going to try to make him curse me out today.
Did he do it?
Nah, he didn't do it. You mentioned 50 years. What was your favorite era? Maybe 2-3 year span. Was it you have a favorite time in boxing?
Well, I basically had two different times. I started out, I was a freelancer for 10 years or more. So the 70s in Philly at the 6th Spectrum was a wonderful time. Of course, Betty Briscoe was the big drawer, but so was Tyron Everett, Saad Muhammad, then Matthew Franklin, and even brought Duran in for one fight. There was so many good fights and so many good. So I really thought that was a very special era. If you see Saad Muhammad, all those wars at the Spectrum, they were unreal. And then when I became the editor of Ring Magazine, it was 1984. So the 80s were pretty good too. Because, I got to go to Vegas to see Hearns and Leonard, Hagler and Hearns, all the big fights, and so that was great.
Now you actually going to segue into my next question. I just had Tim Witherspoon here, and I mentioned when Tim fought Holmes, those were a closed circuit. Even though Tim Witherspoon was an unknown guy, you mentioned that the Hagler Hearns, the world stopped for those fights. I mean, the world, Good Morning America would have been. Why don't you think, I'm not saying maybe have a Good Morning America broadcast live from XYZ fight, but what has happened where that major mainstream thing, there's a lot of great fights that are out there and could be made, whatever, doesn't get that recognition?
Well, I think there's a lot of different elements. Number one, of course, there are no newspapers anymore. Now, I was talking to Russell one day, and I said, well, listen, there's all these podcasts and websites. He said, yeah, but listen to this. He said, maybe you're reading the paper for a football or a baseball story, and you've turned the page over, and there's a boxing story. You might go. You might get interested. The websites are all about boxing, right. So only boxing people will go to them. So you can't recruit people from the newspaper business. That's one thing. I worked for Al Heyman for a year, and he paid me very well. So I'm not anti-Al Heyman, but I think the money he started to pay fighters, he was overpaying them, and now they still want to be overpaid.
Yeah.
And he had like 500 fighters. Now he's got maybe 50. So the price has gone up. The streaming is good, and I think streaming is the wave of the future. But it was supposed to get rid of pay-per-view. I'm not gonna fight the. I mean, I'll watch any fight that people pay me to watch, but I'm not paying out. You know, when they had the third fight between Triple G and Canelo, we went to a movie house.
Okay.
So instead of $75, it was $25.
How was that experience?
The picture's great.
Wow.
It's fucking huge, and it's very sharp. Don't sit too close to the screen because they have it on really loud.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, 25 compared to 75, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I think pay-per-view, they used to be for the really great fights. And they still have those, especially when Pacquiao was fighting. I mean, they were always exciting. And you wouldn't mind paying whatever it was back then because you knew it was going to be a real fight, you know? If it's a Floyd Mayweather fight, you don't know whether it's going to be a good fight. Probably not unless it was the first half of his career. So now, if it's pay-per-view, the only time I actually pay for it is when my editor's going to reimburse me.
Back to the book for a second, and this might be like picking your favorite kid. Do you have a favorite story or passage in the book?
Not really a passage, but now that I've been around a while, I'm allowed to include myself in the stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wrote one that you would love. It's called 10% Off the Top, The Misadventures of a Frontman. So I fronted 5 different fighters for Russell Peltz. And the stories were unreal. One of them was Jerome Artis.
Okay.
Now, Jerome Artis beat Sugar Ray Leonard in the National Golden Cup. He was no bum. But boy, all he wanted to do was party. He could come off the street and go 8 rounds. Fight for 6, hang on for 2. But so he was a real character. But the one that you've got to read about, if you get this, is Alfonso Heyman.
No relation. No relation.
No. He was a good welterweight, got in the top 10 for a while, but that was a real experience. So I like that chapter because nobody knew now that I used to manage fighters.
That's a great story. Yeah. I mean,
you didn't know, right?
I know of you as
a writer.
Yeah, writer.
So I realized after a while that I wasn't cut out to be a man. You got to be a sneaky person, a liar, all that sort of stuff. And that's not me. So after a while, I gave them their contracts back.
You see, we're just talking because one of the greatest fighters ever lived just walked in the room.
Who's that?
One Manos DiPietro just walked in the room.
Who?
Roberto Duran.
Oh, yeah, he's in everywhere now. I remember when he was grouchy. Now he loves everybody.
Before we get, I'll let you hawk the book one more time. Where can we see you writing in 2022? I know you dabble in a couple places.
I'm going to be at the next one is going to be at Jimmy's Sports Bar up in the Northeast. That's later this month.
So where are you writing now? Where are we seeing your articles today?
Oh, okay. Right now, my main thing is the British Boxing News.
Great.
They're a weekly.
I love it.
All right.
I subscribe to it. I did.
And,
it just got too expensive.
Well, they got digital and paper.
Yeah.
But digital's cheap.
Okay, maybe I'll get that. But it's an awesome magazine. It really is.
Yeah, and it gets better and better. And I started up a magazine, a digital magazine called Ringside Seats.
Okay.
There was this guy, Michael Cronenberg, who was a boxing fan, and he was a designer of books and magazines and all, graphic artist. And his father had been a major boxing fan, amateur fight. So he wanted to start a boxing magazine. So him, me, and another guy got together, and I was the most pessimistic. Michael was over the moon, thought it was going to be great. And Eddie Mueller, who was the third guy, he was sort of neutral. So what we decided to do is do one issue and see how it went. And the writers would write for nothing, the first issue. And we're in our 4th year now. or 50th. I
Wow.
think.
And that's how many issues has that been? What is it, monthly?
What is a quarterly?
Quarterly, okay.
And basically, what it's about is good writing.
Yeah.
Nobody can write for it. We're not really interested in reporters. They have a job. That's great. But it's very creative. A lot of good writers, and the graphics are fantastic. Now, it's a paper version as well, so you can get paper or you can get digital. Paper you got to get from Amazon.
Yeah.
But the digital is cheap. Now, the main thing in publishing is paper, printing, and distribution. All that goes away with digital.
Yeah.
That's why you can get it for $4 instead of 14.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
So, I don't know what's happening in the ring. My lips are sealed, but I think they're on very thin ice. But it's mainly those two that I write for, the Ringside Seat and the British Boxing News. Did you read the new one where I did the story about Zaire Rahim?
What's that?
Did you read the recent, I guess maybe last week or the week before, in Boxing News? I wrote a story about Zaire Rahim.
No. I'll be sure to read it.
He was, I ran into the Pennsylvania Boxing Hall of Fame. I hadn't seen him since he quit fighting. And he told me a story. It's amazing. I'm not going to spoil it for you. He made it. And nothing, I just suspected it was going to be a regular interview. Because I was trying to get Fearless Freddy, and he never showed. I don't know what happened to him. So it's a year. So we did an interview here now. He's got a gym with another guy. But remember when he beat Eric Morales?
What's that?
He beat Eric Morales.
Yes.
Remember that? That was his big fight.
Yep.
And they screwed him after that. They didn't move him right.
Yeah. See, here comes back home once in a while.
Yeah.
He like I said, he brought a fighter. I just saw him at the Pennsylvania Hall of
that's
Fame.
where I saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He looked good, didn't he?
Yeah, he looked like he was ready for the club that night.
Yeah, I teased him about his pink coat.
Yeah.
He looked good in it.
Yeah, he did.
And so, he was in the Olympics when
96,
David Reed
yep.
was, right? And David Reed
Terrence
got all the
Crawford
publicity because
yep.
he got a gold medal
Correct.
with a one-punch knockout. Zaire lost a second fight. And he got a contract with their top rank. And they put him in, they never put him in big fights.
Yeah.
They had the one in Texas, Rocky Juarez, where they stole it from him.
Yep.
The referee kept giving him penalties for holding behind the head 3 times in a fight in the other guy's hometown. So
Fought Freitas for the title. I know that.
that was a terrible fight. They were falling all over. It was terrible. Because they were both, I don't know. Freitas used to be aggressive, but he wasn't aggressive. Zaire was never aggressive. And when you read the story, you'll know why.
I'm going to read it. So Zahire's a friend of mine. I said I haven't talked
He's
to him.
a nice guy.
Very nice guy. Very nice guy.
He always looked sad when I saw him at the gym. When they were in the Olympics, they had a big, like, all on the wall in the gym, they had a poster. They just said, "Welcome back, our Olympic heroes." So we posed them in front of it, right? David one end and Zaire on the other end. David smiling like a guy would if he's getting a multi-million-dollar contract. I wrote he looked like his dog had just died.
Oh, wow.
So I always thought he was, maybe he was depressed.
Like you say, he's a pretty happy-go-lucky guy now.
Now he's like, at the Pennsylvania Boxing Hall of Fame, Fred Jenkins called me over to take a picture of them together. And then I read the story, and Fred was he was his savior. He was his savior. Fred has saved hundreds of boys from that neighborhood.
There are a lot of guys in a lot of towns. I call them, they're like real pillars of the community. So,
well, boxing saved him too, and he got out. I guess because of his defensive style, and I think he's ended up like 23-3. He got out in time. He's running a gym in Atlanta. He told me Him and his buddy founded a vacant building, all boarded up. They turned it into a real nice gym.
So it's like the metaphor of boxing. It's, you turn nothing into something. There's a
Yeah.
lot of those stories. One more time.
Yeah, one more story you ought to read. It's called Sparring with Akins. Akins is a famous painter who used to paint boxers.
Okay.
And there's his best paintings in the Museum of Fine Arts. So I went to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. I didn't go to university. He used to teach there. He wasn't dead. He was dead then. And he was like an anti-hero. And I read the story about him and me because I shouldn't have been in that place. I was no good. I was a third-rate artist, and you had to submit a portfolio. And I did a picture of Dick Tiger and Gene Fulmer fighting off of the cover of a magazine, and it sucked. And now I realize maybe they took me in because I did a boxing picture. But anyway, Akins, that's another good story. I like to write the unusual. I always try to find an angle that nobody else is using.
Very apropos for boxing.
Yeah, because a lot of it's just cookie cutter stuff,
One more time, let's put the book up and tell us where we can get it.
Yep, you can get it on Amazon. You can pre-order now. And if you're in the Philadelphia area, you can come to one of my book signings. So listen, even if you don't want the book, you can come up and shake my hand and say hi.
Well, I'll shake your hand now. Thank you for a few minutes of your